This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, we're learning Sefer Daniel, Perek Zayin, Pasuk Chaf Gimel. And this is the prophecy, this is the dream of Daniel. We know Daniel saw 4 animals. The first animal, of course, was the lion with the eagle's wings. The second animal was the bear, and then the leopard, and then Daniel sees finally the fourth animal,
the beast.
He sees the beast, and he, like a monster, he sees a very fearful, fearsome animal. And in Pasuk Chav Gimel, Kain Amar, and so he said, Chevesar v'yasa. Now this is the Malach, this is the angel explaining to Daniel the meaning of the vision. And the angel says, this fourth beast, Malchu Revi'ah, Teheve Ba'ara, is the fourth kingdom that will be in the land, Disishne, which will be different, Min Kol Malke Vasa, from all of the kingdoms, V'seichul Kalara, it will eat all the land, Usadushina, and it will trample, V'sadkina, and it will destroy. And of course, the simple interpretation is this fourth beast, it's referring to the Roman Empire, which we are still under today. The Ibn Ezra has a minority view, and that is the fourth empire is the Arab world, the Muslim world, and Rome is under the category of the third empire, Greece. Okay, be it as it may. The Karnaya Asarmina, it's 10 horns. We explained the 10 horns refer to the 10 Roman Caesars, going until Titus, starting from Julius Caesar. Malchusa, Asra Malchan Yukuman, 10 kingdoms will arise. V'acharon, and another one, Yukum Acharehan, will rise after them. V'hu Yishne Min Kadmaye, and it will be different from its predecessors. Usilasa Malchin Yahashpil, and it will lower, it will destroy 3 kingdoms. Okay. Rabbi say,
you have the thing on there?
Yes.
The access button is not showing. Okay. So it's blue.
Is the blue light steady?
Solid.
So
Solid blue.
What's the issue?
No, usually there's a little button here that says access that's red when that thing is on, but I don't see it on.
I see it on.
Right?
I see it on.
That's the recording. There's another one in the back.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Fine. Now the next pasuk Chaf Hey, is what we're going to be spending the majority of the Shiur on, and this is one of the most ambiguous psukim in all of Sefer Daniel. And this is the first pasuk that will give us the date as to the coming of Moshiach. So you go home today, your wife wants to know, what did you learn today? You say you learned when Moshiach is coming. Now, it's very interesting.
Which 3 kings will it...
So that we learned Glatstein. Different pshatim. Okay.
The woman said, don't worry. We have been bigger troubles.
The what?
A fellow came home and said, Hannah, pack the Pesach Mashiach straight into the van.
Yeah.
So she said, don't worry, my son. Want je ooit begeleid dressen dazu, was met die zu overbeleven. Kom wat te zijn, dit moet ook.
Okay. Now I want you to know that in Sefer Daniel there are going to be 3 predictions as to when Moshiach is coming. In Perek Zayin, Pasuk Chaf Hey. That's the first pasuk. Then you have in Perek Chaf, as we will soon see, Perek Chaf Pasuk Yadalid, there the pasuk says, Ad Erev, until evening, Boiker, morning, Alpayim Ushloish Meos, 2,300, V'nitzdak Kodesh. And the holy ones will be exonerated.
Daniel Perek Chav?
Perek Ches.
Ches, you said
Perek Ches. And then, finally, at the end of the Sefer in Perek Yud Beis, we have one last prediction, where Perek Yud Beis, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Ume'es Husar HaTamid, V'lasei Shikotz Shoymim Yamim, Elef Masayim B'Tishim. And it's important to note that in Sefer Daniel there are 3 predictions as to when Mashiach is coming. And this may be reminiscent of something we know from the Chumash. That when it comes to when we left Mitzrayim, also 3 different dates were given. What were they? You have 430, 400, 210. So Rabbeinu Bechaye points out in Parshas Boy, Perek Yud Beis, Pasuk Mem, that because there's a principle that Kimei Tzeischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim Arenu Neflais, that the final redemption will parallel the original redemption. Therefore, the same way in Sefer Shemais, you have 3 predictions as to when Mitzrayim, when Yetzias Mitzrayim would be. So too in Sefer Daniel, you had 3 predictions. Now, it's important to know this is one of the Yisodei Ha'amunah. The Jews in Mitzrayim, they heard 430, they heard 400, they heard 210. Did they have any idea whatsoever what those prophecies meant? None whatsoever. To the point where we know the Bnei Ephraim, they left Mitzrayim 30 years early, because they calculated the 400 years from the Bris Bein HaBesarim instead of from 30 years later from the birth of Yitzchak. So, and then when did we finally understand how to reconcile the 430, the 400, and the 210? Only as we're leaving, we chapped. 430 is Bris Bein HaBesarim. 400 is Leidas Yitzchak. 210 is from the Shibud. So too, says Rabbeinu Bechaye, we have no idea how to reconcile the 3 dates given in Sefer Daniel. Okay? That's the first thing that we need to know. Now, let's see if we could try to figure out what this date is. And I'll be happy to tell you that I have one calculation that you may be very pleased to hear.
Next year.
Okay. Take a look in Pasuk Perek Zayin. Pasuk Chafei. Umilin letzad ilah yamala. And words to the Supreme One He will speak. This refers to the haughtiness of the last empire. Ulekadishe el yoinim yivale. And to the Supreme High Ones He will wear out. V'yizbar, and He will plan. Now you see that word, yizbar? Where does that word come from?
What does he mean by He will wear out? He will give Himself over to them?
No, He'll wear us out. He'll cause us to be worn out. He'll wear us out.
Who, Moshiach?
No, the fourth empire will wear out Klal Yisrael. V'yizbar. What is that word, v'yizbar? You ever see such a word? Svara. Where in Mishnayos do you have this word? Have a mekabos kol ha'adam. The Sefer panim yafais. What does Sefer mean? Sefer means interest, thought. The Yizbar, this fourth empire, will plan lahashnaya, to change zimnin, times, vidas, and religion, v'yisyahavun bidei, and he will be given in his hand. In other words, we will be given into his hand of the fourth empire ad idan, until a time, v'idanin, and times, uplag idan, and a half a time. So if you want to know when Moshiach is coming, someone stops you on the street. Mr. Greenberg, when's Moshiach coming? You tell them, a time, 2 times, and a half a time. So you say, what does that mean?
2.5 times something.
Right? A time,
period.
2 times, and then
a half a time.
Now, when we say 2 times, is it an additional 2 times, or now that we have this next time, now it's 2 times?
Double time.
Everybody knows what that means.
Triple time is double time plus a straight time.
So Rabbi said, let's try to calculate. Let's try to figure out when Mashiach is coming, right?
Yeah, sure.
So let's see Rashi. Letzad ilah. This is very important. Letzad ilah, to the Supreme One's klape mala. To Supreme One means to God Himself. Ulekadishe el yoinin yavale, He will wear out the Supreme High Ones. Uli Yisrael, to the Jewish people, yatriach, He will bother. V'yatzik, He will torment. V'yizbar lahashnaya zimnin v'das. Yidmeh belibai, He will contemplate in his heart. Leha'aviram al kol mayadem v'dasem. This fourth empire will attempt to remove from the Jewish people all of their holidays and all of their laws. Okay, you ready? A time, 2 times, and a half a time. Anybody have any idea what's a time? Maybe like this. In the Koilel, in the Young Israel of Kugarn Hills, they learn in 45-minute segments. So maybe in 45 minutes, and then in an hour and a half, plus another 22 and a half minutes, Mashiach is coming. I mean, how do you... The most important detail the Pasuk omits, and that is, how much is a time? How much time is a time? Yeah? So let's see Rashi. Ad Idan v'idanin uplag Idan. Kate Sasam Huzah. This is a sealed and hidden end. Kasher Nemer Daniel, like Daniel is told, Sisaim Hadvarim v'chasaim. Seal the matter and close it up. Right? If you look at the end of Sefer Daniel, Daniel is told in Perek Yud Beis Pasuk Daled. This is a very important pasuk. V'yata Daniel Sisaim Hadvarim v'chasaim. Close the matter and seal it up. Okay, so this is almost inexplicable. We have no idea what it means. A time, 2 times and a half a time. But V'darshu harishainim ishlefi daitai. All the early authorities, says Rashi, have tried to explain this pasuk according to their opinion. V'kalu hakitzim, the ends have already approached. V'yesh lanu l'pais rayod. And therefore we need to interpret it further. Kasher ra'isi kasav b'shem Rav Sadia. Like I've seen written in the name of Rav Sadia. In other words, Rashi says all the early Torah giants have tried to explain this pasuk. The only trouble is, all of their explanations, the time that they predicted has already passed. So therefore, we need to keep on explaining it until we hit the jackpot, until we get the right number. Okay, so like this. You know what the right number is? You know when Moshiach is coming? In the year 1335.
After the Korban.
After something.
Has to start at a certain.
Now, does anybody know when the Churban was?
70 CE. So 1335 would be 1405 CE.
Okay, 70 CE or 68 CE?
68.
Doesn't matter. We know that calculation doesn't work.
So they're generally 68. By the way, the Seder Hadoros, yesterday I spoke in Muncie. There was a man there by the name of David Gwertz. He came over to me after. He said he's a descendant of the Seder Hadoros. Seder Hadoros, Rabbi Chiel Halpern. You look in the Seder Hadoros, and he says the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed in the year 168 CE. Now there is a concept of Shimon Schwab has an article of the missing 100 years. There are 100 years in Jewish history that we cannot account for. And it's a whole controversy and mystery. But in any event, it's either commonly it's 668 or 70, or perhaps according to that view 168. But either way, 1,335 years plus 68 is what?
1403.
1403. That's a long time ago. Now, it even may be 1,335 years after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash,
Which also didn't happen.
which is 500 years earlier, which is
480 years old.
480 years earlier. And it may even be not from the Churban Beis HaMikdash, from the day that the Karban Tamid was abolished, which was 6 years before the Churban. So this date that we're going to learn doesn't shtim, right? It's long gone.
Unless
Shtim nicht.
Moshiach came, didn't like what he saw, and decided to come back another time.
Okay. Let's see how this fits into the pasuk. How does the year 1335 fit into the pasuk? Kasher Ra'isi Kasav B'Shem Rav Sadia Heim Elef V'Gimel Meyos V'Lamed Heishanim Ha'amar B'Seif HaSefer Ashri HaMachak. Okay, now why are we saying the year 1335? Because in Daniel, Perek Yud Beis, it says explicitly in Yud Beis, Yud Beis, Ashrei HaMachak, fortunate is the one who waits to the years L'Yamim Elef Shloish Meyos Shloishim Mechamisha.
Why is it that? Does it fit into the pasuk?
So now let's see how it fits into the pasuk. Uperish Hamoyed, the explanation of this time, Ad Eis Shnei Itim V'Chatzi Eis. This pasuk is saying 2 times and a half a time. Now, what's a time? If think of it this way, let's work backwards. You know algebra. If the total needs to be 1,335, 2.5x.
You need a binomial equation.
2.5x equals 1335.
No, so it's 480 times 60.
What's 2.5x? What's x?
480.
So let's keep it
A
simple.
little under 480.
400 will get you to...
1,000.
Well, actually...
480 times 2 is 960. 960 and a half of 240.
Now, when we say a half a time, is it a half of one time or a half of the 2 times? So let's say it's like that. So then it's 3x equals 1335.
So X is 435. 445.
No, x might be.
445. If 3x is 1335, X is 445.
So 445 gets you to what? 890. Two
And
times.
half of it, right?
And
half of it,
1335.
right.
Good. So that means the time is how much?
445.
445. So let's see how Rashi says. Hamoyed ad eish shnei itim mechatzi es. V'amar sheha'itim heim daled meos upei. A time is 480. What does that mean? Now we're going to see that these 3 times, Rabbi Isai, each time is a different cheshbon. One time could be 480, one time could be 410,
Right.
and then half of that is 435.
890 divided by 2 is 445.
Good.
And 890 and 445 is 1335.
Correct, right. So let's get our Jewish history down. How many years were the Jews in the desert?
40.
40. How many years were in the land of Israel before they built the first Beis HaMikdash?
60?
440. 440. 40 in the desert, 40 before Shlomo built the first Beis HaMikdash, 480. How long did the first Beis HaMikdash stand? 410. How long was Galus Bavel? 70. How long was the Bayis Sheni? 420. Okay, so let's see like this. V'yamar sheho'itim heim daled meos upei. The time is 480. Shemiyam tseisami Mitzrayim, from the day they left Egypt, ad shev nivneh habayis, until the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, was how long? How long was it from the day they left Egypt until the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed?
No, till it was built.
Till it was built?
410.
From the time they left Mitzrayim until the Beis HaMikdash was
480.
built? 480, right? 40 in the desert, 440 in Israel. B'daled meos eser yimei mikdash rishon. How long is that? 410 plus 480 is 890. Tough tzaddik. Plus a half a time. Void chatzi ois hazeh. Tough mem hey. Hare elef shin lamed hey. 1335.
But we know this didn't happen, so why would you must...
Now, when do we calculate that from? Es elech hashoiv me'es husar hatamid. This we need to calculate from the time that the Tamid was abolished. When was the Tamid abolished?
Earlier.
What?
6 years later.
Right? Ad shuv zevach hatamid al makameh v'husar sheishanim v'nei achorben. So that would have to be Rashi's referring to when the Tamid was abolished in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. Because in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, if you're going to calculate 1335 from the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, then you have 70 plus 420, that's 490. It's only another 900 years until you get to 1335, before Rashi even came to the scene. So it would be no sense for Rashi calculating a date that passed before he was born. Okay? Now it would have to be, when was the second Beis HaMikdash destroyed?
70.
Let's say 68. When was the Tamid abolished? 62 CE plus 1335 gets you to what?
1307. 1397.
1397, that's after Rashi's time. So if you ask Rashi, when's Moshiach coming? The year 1397. One time is what? 480. The second time is what? 410. The half a time is another 435. 1335. Now Rabbi said, what do we do with that? Nothing we could do with it. Doesn't have any meaning to us. Rabbi said, does anyone...
It means that our definition of time and this calculation doesn't work, so it's got to be a different definition of what time is.
Yeah. Does anybody have the Malbim in front of them?
Yeah, but not for...
Malvin, no?
They're home.
Now the Malbim obviously wants to come to a calculation that's after his time.
Why do I have to make the cheshbonis with the Talmud? Pasha is 13.
The year, what? The Torah is saying the year 1335?
Yeah.
There's no such thing in Torah as 1335. The
Why
Torah
not?
is calculating from when Yashka was born?
No, we're converting it.
Yeah, I'm
to
saying,
our-
what's you mean 1335 of the Jewish calendar?
No,
Right.
from Yetzias Mitzrayim, 1335 years.
1335 from Yetzias Mitzrayim is going to get you to, you know what? Smack in the middle of the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. Mashiach ain't coming in the times of the second Beis HaMikdash. Rashi's not predicting a date. Daniel was saying a date that's going to happen in another 200 years from him. But, that wouldn't do us any good. It certainly won't do us any good.
Why? Why can't you say that?
Because it didn't come then. And Rashi,
but he predicted that it will come then.
But Daniel is a Navi. It's one thing for Rashi to make a prediction. Okay, it didn't come. Daniel is saying it from Hashem. Whatever Daniel is saying is Chai B'Kayim.
He's saying Daniel said.
Yeah,
what
so
Rashi
it must be that's not Pshat in what Daniel was saying.
So what was he saying?
So now let's see. Maybe the Malbim has an explanation.
No, but what were you saying? 6 years the carbon atomic.
Why do I say the Tamid? Because at the end of Sefer Daniel it says Ume'az Husar HaTamid. That's it. It tells you where to calculate from.
So then it's not 1335.
It's 1335 from the time of Husar HaTamid. Husar HaTamid was in the year 62 of the Common Era.
We haven't yet figured out what is time refer?
Oh, so Rashi says time is 480, times is 410, half the time is 435. Let's see what the Malbim says. Correct.
Or unless the starting date is wrong.
Okay, right.
We don't know what the start date is.
Okay, good. The Malbim gives another explanation. Okay, if you have the Malbim, very important to look at. Achar shesasam. After the Navi conceals v'loi pirish eza idan, and it doesn't tell you what time. Bevadai kivan al eis yadua. It's obviously referring to a specific time. V'hu oya. In other words, what is this time frame? What is this time that we're saying? 1 time, 2 times, a half a time. How much is that? So v'hu oya arba meo shana. Maybe it's 400 years. 400 years. What's the significance of 400 years? Says a Malbim, that's how long we were in Mitzrayim for. It goes Mitzrayim. Or the time frame could be 410. 410 is what? The time of the first Beis HaMikdash. Oy taf yud shana zman sha'aman mikdash rishon. V'chein perish chazal v'chal hakadmonim. Rak shehem perishu plag idan. You know what a half a time is? Chatzi zman meyarba me'ois. Either half of the 400, oy mi taf yud shana, or the 410. If you're going to calculate 400 plus another 400, or 410 plus another 410, so everything already passed. You know what a half a time is? If you add up 1 time plus another 2 times, which is 400, plus another 2 400s, which equals 1200, plus another half of 1200 is 600, 1800. From the destruction of the second bias, that gets you to 1868.
Right.
Now we're talking.
No, we're not. It's gone. It didn't happen.
Now it's far better than the year 1300s. We're getting closer. So in other words, the half a time, first of all, the Malbim has accomplished 2 things. It's not 1 time plus a second time plus a half a time. It's 1 time plus 2 times plus half of that. But now the Malbim says like this. He feels, you know what a time is?
But you see, I have difficulty in the concept, the way the Lashon of the Pasuk is, that Chatzi Idon, right?
Yeah.
Is anything more than half of one of the numbers. Why would you say Idon is 1? The second Idon is a second time, and now you're going to say half is equal to the sum of the first.
Because there is no definitive explanation for time. So the first time means one thing, and then the second Idon is the going on what we just said. I mean, we're going to have to say that. Says the Malbim, V'im nachshav ha'idon da'od meo shana, Shlosh Idan Mehem Elef Masayim, that's 1200. V'chatzi Idan Hu Sheish Meo Shana. Sach HaKol Yud Ches Meo Shana. V'yagia Hazman B'Shnas. One second. V'yagia Hazman B'Shnas Taf Reish Chav Ches. That will get you to the year 628, which is what? 628 converted into the English calendar is 1868 at 1240. The problem is, says the Malbim, I'm past the year 1868. Plus, it doesn't coincide with the year 1335 mentioned at the end of the Sefer. Raxman ze lo yatim yeses and umukhrach sha'idan hu taf yud shana. You know what a time is? 4:10. Kizman amidas bayis rishon. What's 3 times?
13:30.
13:30. Shlosh idanim heim elef reish lamed shana. 13:30. What's a half a time?
665.
665.
1995.
1 second. 13:30 plus 65 is what?
1390.
So, excuse me. 12:30 plus 6:15. Right? A zman is 4:10. A zman is 4:10. 3 zmanim are 12:30. Half of that is 6:15. That gets you to 18:35. 18:45. Plus 68 gets you to?
Why the plus 68?
Because from the time of the Churban. 1913. Now we're talking, says the Malbim.
Really?
Because the Malbim is writing this before the year 1913.
What do you mean plus 68?
Because it's from the 1 second, from the time of the Churban, Beis HaMikdash is in the year 68. So 410 is what Idan. Idanim is another 820, that gets you to 1230. Plus half of that time is what? 615. That gets you to what? 1845. Plus 68, 1913. So if you want to know,
plus 68?
because it's from the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash.
Yeah, but you counted the,
No, I
the
didn't.
time. The Bayis Rishon.
No.
From the first.
No. You're counting from the Churban Bayis Sheni. What are you counting? Idan, which is 410. And another 2 Idanim, which is 820.
410 means as long.
No, not from that date. The total amount of time the first Beis HaMikdash stood.
410 it stood. By 410 it was destroyed
No,
already.
again, we want to know what a time frame is. A time frame is 410 years.
Okay.
When do you start counting that time frame? From the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash.
Rabbi, I don't understand.
So that gets you to what year?
1913.
1930.
But Rabbi, look at the pasuk. It says ad idan, the idanin, uflag idan.
Yeah.
So when we start to figure out whatever time period means, how many years it is, idan is 1.
Yeah.
Idanin is 2.
Another 2.
Flag idan. How could you come and say if idanin is 2 when it says flag idan that half is going to be half of idanin?
Because the
Doesn't make
word
sense.
idan is not a definitive meaning that it means this thing and that's it. It means different things at different times.
Flag idanin.
No, it should have said actually uflag gimel idanim.
So this
Right?
Neviah. So
Whatever, but to take the flag idan and to say that it's half of the larger number of idanim doesn't make sense.
So one second.
So wait a minute. So this 68.
Zelig,
Yeah,
we haven't
okay.
discussed my point yet. Your math.
The mysterious ambiguous term idan means one thing in the word idan, and uplag idan is not going on that meaning of the original meaning of
Means of
idan.
the-
It's going on the total. Let's finish the Malbim.
Wait a minute.
One
but
second.
68.
Who misachet?
68 is when Daniel gave the.
No,
was
no.
68 years before the.
No.
destruction.
That you start to count this nevuah from the time of the Churban Bayis Sheni, which is the year 68. V'hu tafrei shayin gimel. V'hu misachet. This coincides. Im yeser hamayadim habam b'sefer k'mashe yisbar. With the other times mentioned in the Sefer. B'zman zeh b'shenis, and this is repeated again. B'simin yud beis and Perek Yud sha'amar hamalach Daniel ki l'mayed mayadim v'chatzi techlenu kalela v'yachar she'azman sasum v'zman ha'yidum b'mei deno hishtayim arba me'as v'taf yud. Okay. So it comes out v'yagia achris hadavar b'shnas taf reish ayin gimel, says a Malbim, the year 1913. But if you put together,
World War One.
as far as I know, that wasn't Bias HaMashiach.
That was Bias HaMashiach, not in World War One.
Really?
We have the third base of Mikdash yet, Reb Zelig.
What does World War One have
Rav
to?
Goren has the third Beis HaMikdash.
So Rabbi said,
That's a minority opinion.
and
A very small minority.
1 second. I just want to mention that this is all calculating the how many years? 410 plus 820. That's 1230 plus 615, 1835. That's adding 1835 to the year 68. But according to the Seder HaDoros, The first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed in what year? 168. According to this, when will Moshiach come?
2013.
This year. This year.
And where is he?
The year isn't over.
No yet.
Show you a cemetery.
He was, according to this, Daniel was a false prophet.
No.
Yeah?
We were false commentaries.
We don't understand the meaning. Why do you say he's false from the...
Rabbi say at the end of Sefer Daniel, Chas v'shalom, we can't. At the end of Sefer Daniel, there is a very interesting pasuk. Rabbi say, if you look in the end of Perek Beis, Perek Beis pasuk Daled, V'yata Daniel sesoim hadvarim, and you Daniel seal up the matter, b'chasoim hasefer, close up the book at Ace Kates until the end of time. Yeshoitatu Rabbim. Many will speculate, v'yisir behadas, and there'll be many opinions. So Daniel himself is predicting that there will be endless amount of interpretations and explanations for. The only reason Rashi, you have to learn Rashi. The only reason I'm mentioning the Malbim is because his calculation of 1913 is quite remarkable if you cheshbon in the accounting of the Seder Hadaras. Okay? Very interesting. Now, one other thing I want to discuss, maybe we won't be able to finish it this week, and that is the Gemara in Masechta Sanhedrin. And the Gemara in Sanhedrin says something that really puts this whole thing in great doubt. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says the following: Tipach atzman shel mechashvei kitzin, that those who calculate the end, their bones should swell. Abzel, you know what it means to have your bones swell?
Yeah, my mother had that.
So it's
Water in the limbs.
To have your bones swell, it's not pleasant.
No, that's an ego thing.
It's not pleasant.
But if we know, Rabbi, that Yaakov Avinu, when he was talking about the bulging the cakes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made him forget, and he lost his sense of being able to calculate. So, if Daniel knows this, why would he even venture to put it and couch it in terms to create controversy?
Well, we don't find that Yaakov Avinu was punished. Hashem just removed it from him. Interesting, the Ibn Ezra writes, Daniel never knew exactly when the Kates was coming. But according to the Medrash, there are two people in history who knew when the Kates was, and that's why I'm very interested in this topic. The two people were Daniel and Yaakov. That's my name, you know, so I like this subject. So, but the Medrash implies that they both did not have, they lost it. They lost it. The problem is that throughout history there have been many predictions as to how do we explain this calculation of Idan, V'idan, and Uplag Idan. And Rashi, Reb Sadi Gaon, the Arizal, Rabbeinu Ephraim, the Malbim. So question number one is, if the Gemara puts a curse on those who try to interpret when Mashiach is coming, how were the greatest of all the authorities able to try to interpret when Mashiach is coming? And number two, and probably even more difficult, how could it be that they were all wrong? Rashi was wrong. Reb Sadi Gaon was wrong. Rabbeinu Ephraim was wrong. The Arizal was wrong. The Malbim was wrong. How could we say such a thing?
He quotes here, I don't know who's this son, so you know, that the Sadya, the calculation is cited in the name of Sadya, who however remarked that all the Chachamim and people with understanding of the true Torah were at a loss and mentally incapable of obtaining the true knowledge of the computation, which was possessed only by a Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Okay, but how do we address the fact that Reb Sadia Gaon is violating the curse of the Gemara? The Gemara says, Tipach atzman shel mechashvei kitzin, that those who calculate the end, their bones should rot, their bones should swell. So how did Reb Sadia Gaon have the audacity to make a prediction? How did the Rambam have? How did the Ramban? How did Rashi? We're not talking about, we're talking about the Gedolei Olam, we're talking about the Yesodei Olam. Pihem anu chayim. We live by their word.
But if they really believe what their calculation was saying,
how could they make the calculation?
But
how are they allowed to make the calculation? We didn't prepare. That's not anyone's business. How are they allowed to make the calculation? The Gemara says you're not allowed to calculate. So the Rambam,
they didn't hold from that shita.
It's a Gemara. It's a Gemara. Mefarashes.
Really? What did the Gemara say?
Tipach atzman shel mechashvei kitzin, that those who calculate the end, their bones should swell. It's a klala.
Mechashvei kitzin, right?
Yeah.
That's a mechash. But here's the Goyen.
Here was a Neviah.
I'm
Here
talking. What is the
no,
matter?
you're right. I'm extending you. It
No.
wasn't a via. It wasn't a...
No, tipach atzon shemachashve kitzim means you can't calculate. You know how to calculate.
Yeah, but he didn't calculate. It was a Navia that came to him.
But it's a nevuah which is inexplicable. We have 5 different perushim. So Rambam writes, and we'll continue with this in Mirz Hashem next week. The Rambam wrote a letter called Igeras Teman to the community in Yemen to be mechazik them in their emunah. And the Rambam starts off by saying, like we mentioned earlier, that even in Mitzrayim, he says like this: if in Mitzrayim, where it was explicit, 210, 400, 430, they had no idea what it meant, so certainly if the Geula Ha'achrita, if the final redemption, where we have nothing explicit, we have just ambiguous terms. 1335 from when? 1430 from when? So if in Mitzrayim, where it was explicit, we had no idea what it meant, certainly in Sefer Daniel, where it's not explicit, we certainly have no idea what it means. So how could Rav Sadia go and make this a prediction? Says the Rambam, he was not allowed to. Va'anu danim es Rav Sadia lekaf schos. I'm reading to you word for word from the Igeras Hatema. Says the Rambam, we have to judge Rav Sadia favorably. Shema mashe evil Indians, that may be what brought him to this. Af al pi shahaya yodea sha'atayra asraza. Even though Rav Sadia Goyim certainly knew the Torah prohibits it, the people in his generation were corrupt. In the times of Rav Sadia Goyim, he had tremendous external pressures from the Christians, from the Mohaddiyans, who were ascending in power. There were tremendous internal pressure from the Karaim. So you can imagine, Jews are being influenced from the outside by the new religions, from the inside by those who didn't believe in Torah Shabbat Peh. Says the Rambam, if not for Rav Sadia Goyim, Kemat shetoivad Torahs Hashem, the Torah would have been completely forgotten. Was Rav Sadia Goyim allowed to write when Moshiach is coming? It's an Isser. It's prohibited. But there are certain times in history, Eis lasos Hashem hefiru Torasecha. Lefi shehu gila min haTorah ma shehayinelam. Rav Sadia felt he needed to reveal what the Torah hid. V'chizek mimenu ma shenidalda. He had to strengthen what was faltering. V'haidio v'lshoinoi, and he taught with his tongue, v'kolmas in his pen, v'ra b'chlam asherah. V'miskavein b'chal masav l'shem shamayim. V'yein litoin olav, don't have tinus on Rav Sadia Goyim al shata b'cheshbonoisav, that he made a mistake in his cheshbon. So in other words, was Rav Sadia Goyim allowed to do what he was doing technically? No. It was a hayra sham. Is that a good answer?
No.
Maybe.
He was giving the Jewish nation
Hope.
false hope. False hope.
Yeah, we'll have to explain that. Because on the one hand, yes, he may give them, a ray of light, but what's going to happen if they see Mashiach doesn't come? He may only increase the allure to veer off. And this answer, the Rambam, maybe it explains Rav Sadia Goyim. Does it explain Rashi? Maybe you say Rashi also. It was very hard times of the Crusades, right? You read about some of the Rishonim in the times of the Crusades. The Mordechai in the times of the Crusades, he was murdered together with his wife and all his children. Right, man, one of the greatest Rishonim. Maybe in times of Rashi also.
But Rashi doesn't.
How about the Arizal? How about the Malbim? So it's a difficult answer.
But you would think that if they were using Horash Shah as a reason to be able to do these calculations, they would write that.
But is it going to work? Rabbi say, we want you to know that since you're veering off the derech and you're really, turning left, so we're going to try to trick you into believing that Mashiach is coming soon.
You can say, I don't know. I know we're not allowed to do this, but it's our Rosh Shah. Therefore, I'm doing it. And whoever is going to accept it is going to accept it. But if he thought it was a real Isser, and people knew that it was an Isser, and he was doing it, you don't want to make it. You don't want people to think that because Rashi is doing these calculations that it's okay to do the calculations.
Well, maybe he did. Maybe he did.
And we didn't see the writing.
Maybe he did. So basically, we'll try to explore Mirz Hashem next week. 2 things. How are these Gedolim allowed to? And how do you account for the fact that these dates have passed? Okay, have a wonderful day. Mirz Hashem tomorrow, 10:15.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.